welcome to the latest episode on our podcast on Who Viewed My Profile podcast. And you can go to whoviewedmyprofilepodcast.com and register for our next couple of events coming up, where you can ask myself and Adam Houlihan here in the chair next to me questions about whatever you want to about LinkedIn. But this episode is going to be about turning visibility into opportunity. And Adam, how do you turn visibility into opportunity?
Well, Chris, I think the first thing we've got to kind of cover is, what is visibility? So are we talking about just being, visible on LinkedIn, or are we turning, profile views into opportunities, or content views into opportunities, or smart links into opportunities? Many different versions of visibility. So, with that in mind, let's maybe cover the first one of those. Is when somebody views your profile, how do we turn that into opportunity? So just because somebody's viewed their profile, it's not the time to sales pitch them. It's obviously a good signal, and LinkedIn gives you that. When you've got Sales Navigator Advanced, which by the way is the only thing that we recommend anybody have. You've got high visibility on who has viewed your profile. On free accounts and other accounts, you only can see the last 4 or 5 or something like that. Completely useless. So the number one thing is obviously when someone does view your profile, is that go to the next step, as in, are they now viewing and consuming your content? Are they now going and clicking on your smart links and things like that? So what's your thoughts on as far as a strategy goes, from just knowing someone's viewed your profile to a next step?
I mean, it comes down to quality, not quantity. I mean, you can go viral, for example, but be targeting the wrong people. So if you can get 1 million views on your profile, but they're the wrong 1 million people, then you've missed an opportunity. So your content has to be catered to a particular target audience, for example. So Adam and I both target founders, we target entrepreneurs all over the world. But the algorithm on LinkedIn basically serves our content for me to Singapore, for Adam to Australia, then goes global based on comments and part of the algorithm. So I know that to go viral, I have to appeal to Singaporean founders and Singaporean executives first, and then it can go beyond that. So I want to target those people through content, and then make sure that they're engaged with the content, they've viewed the content, and then put a smart link on there to make sure that they actually then might want to find out more about our services, for example. So you're qualifying people through a sales funnel, but you're doing it through your personal brand. They're following you because they like your content. They like your content, so it means you have to post on a regular basis. I would say at least kind of daily, if not kind of like more than daily. And then they have a call to action there in terms of smart links. So are they even interested? Are they even the target audience? Are they a founder? Are they an entrepreneur? Are they a job seeker? Are they someone looking for investment who basically then wants to have a conversation, a qualified conversation about what you can actually do for them? So I think it's a strategic process.
Yeah, very true. And so what about the next step when people have now starting to engage on your content? Some of them will be open to commenting in some way. And of course, some of what we call the lurkers. So let's not worry about the lurkers for now. But the ones that are openly commenting, is every time someone comments on your profile, is that a signal to a next step as far as the social selling process?
I don't think so. I think you have to. People can comment on my post, but they're not my target audience, for example. But they might be connected to somebody who's my target audience. So I get a lot of people who say, "Oh, I love your content because this connection of mine basically commented on how I saw it. Then how I looked at your profile, I looked at your content, and then I viewed your smart link." And I think it's a natural process which people don't really understand, that you can't just basically have a profile and no content, because then people don't know who you are, and no one can comment. And you can't just have content which gets no comments, because comments lead to conversations with potential clients, which might be connections of people who are commenting. So you really got to be, LinkedIn gives you all the data. I can see someone who's commenting, whether it can be one of my perfect clients or not, my perfect ICP, but they might lead to someone else. So I will engage with that person on the basis of their connections might be my potential target audience. And that's the key for me, is to use people, not use people, it sounds the wrong way, but see people as a catalyst to help me reach their connections through content, which is more about social selling than hard selling, soft selling, I would call it.
Yeah. And what's your opinion on polls? there's many
Don't use
different
them.
arguments about, because you get the visibility of who answered what on which poll. So, do you use them? Do you see value in them? Is there a strategy
I've
behind
never
them?
used polls, Adam, and that went through. Obviously, LinkedIn went through the process of they introduced polls. Everyone then used polls. Then polls basically killed polls, and then LinkedIn killed polls. And now I see them every now and again. But we've tested it on our clients; they don't work. So we have a rule: we don't use polls for any of our clients at all because they literally do not work. I've seen the numbers. Basically, you're a waste of time. You're better off doing an original post with a nice picture of you, or commenting or doing a post about a topical. Local topic, for example, and getting engagement that way than polls. I've seen no value. I mean, you may disagree, but I've seen no value in polls.
Nice. So there you go. Polls are definitely on their way out. But what about what's the people's should have as realistic expectations? Because one of the arguments I get from people is it's a lot of work. Like to implement a social selling strategy
Yep.
is and let's face it, it does require a bit of work.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, that's why you and I both have a business.
Yeah.
I created Black Marketing because I came to Singapore almost 20 years ago, and I got my first 3 jobs by networking on LinkedIn. I started using LinkedIn across the entire region. I realized that none of the businesses I worked for knew how to use LinkedIn. I also realized no one I met knew how to use LinkedIn. So I turned it into a service which I could outsource and basically help other people who couldn't afford to have a entire team just dedicated to doing LinkedIn marketing, but could see the benefits of doing LinkedIn marketing. And therefore, you can outsource your LinkedIn marketing to us to do it for you, because it is content creation is not everyone's cup of tea. Even with AI, and especially with AI, I would say, you basically don't fall down the trap of going, I put this into AI and now I have a content marketing strategy, when the engagement of your AI content will be nothing. And you basically then start looking, oh no, this AI content doesn't work. You have to have a strategy around your content that helps you achieve your objectives of winning clients or winning a job or winning investment or employing people. And it has to be how you get visibility, but it then turns into an actionable, a smart link or an actionable way of someone then viewing your profile or engaging or asking you just, can you help me with my LinkedIn profile or my LinkedIn content?
Yeah, good point. What about if someone does want to do it themselves? What do you think is a realistic sort of daily ritual as far as time goes to invest into a LinkedIn strategy?
That's a great question, Adam. I mean, I would say at least an hour a day, an hour to 2 hours a day, and that includes weekends. Because basically, if you have a perfect client or perfect employer look at your profile on Friday, because your post was going viral on a Friday because you did a more leisure post, and then you don't look at who viewed your profile on a Saturday to follow up, and you leave it to Monday, you've then missed 3 potential days. So, you do need to look at how you're using content, what kind of reactions do you expect, but you also need to follow up. You can't just put content out there and someone then looks at your profile, looks at your smart link, and then you don't follow up, because they tend to be quite lazy. And they will want your service, but they may not contact you about the service. So you do need to contact them. If you don't contact them, then they may not think you're interested in selling your service. They may not be that bothered. If you contact them instead of a meeting and qualify them with a smart link, they may push them over to then having an actual meeting with you where you can actually sell to them and then close a deal. So I do think that an hour a day of fixing your profile, creating content, reaching out to people who viewed your profile, reaching out to people who are part of your ICP, reaching out to people who are on your smart link, and that takes time.
Yeah, it does. And when you do reach out, I mean, worst case scenario is they can just say, no, I'm not interested.
Right.
So, but I'm sure you could share many, many examples of where they wouldn't have actually reached out back to you had you not made started the
every
conversation.
Day, Adam, every day. I'm sure you have the same thing. Every single day, people play, oh yes, I meant to reach out to you. Or I loved your content. Oh yeah, I'm looking for someone to the LinkedIn marketing side of things. Oh yeah, you referred to me. I haven't had time to contact you. I get that all the time. So I normally find out, why did you look at my profile? Oh, because I referred you to X. And I read, but X hasn't reached out to me. Oh, she's probably very busy, or he's very busy. So okay, give me the X's detail, I will do it. So then I contact X and I say, Bob basically recommended you. Oh yeah, I meant to contact you. And because people are busy. LinkedIn is not the number one reason for living or for working. Therefore, I want to try and make things easy for them by saying, this is how we can help you. This is our smart link. This is how much we charge. Do you want to have a meeting? Do you want to go ahead with the services? And you do need to make sure it's as easy as possible for someone to say yes to at least having a meeting or at least having a Zoom call, for example, to then potentially meeting you. So that's how you really do turn this visibility into a potential client.
Yeah. And one of the things, and I'm sure that you'll have experienced it as well. How many times have you gone onto a new client's profile and looked at in their messages, and there's been people reach out to them actually asking for information about their services, and they haven't actually even bothered to reply? It's obvious, but what's the importance of part of that hour of each day to be checking your messages?
Well, I mean, that's a fantastic point, Adam. And that connects to invitations. The same thing. We've had clients where we go onto their profile, they've got like 10,000 connections they've reached out or basically incoming. And we go, huh, you got 10,000? How's that possible? Yeah, haven't looked at that for years. But it's like, you realize that you've got clients there. There are clients there who you are your perfect ICP, your perfect ideal client, who you haven't bothered to go through. And that's why you do need to be rigorous in basically sending out invitations, withdrawing invitations so it's nice and clean, answering all invitations, pressing ignore this person, I don't know this person, to make sure that LinkedIn sort out people who are spamming. And making sure if you do get an invitation, all you need to do on a daily basis is look at those invitations coming in and answer them, and then suggest a meeting or thank them for connecting and suggest you have a Zoom call. And the same with messages, Adam. Basically, you do need to be answering this on a daily basis. Otherwise, opportunities can slip through your grasp just by that lack of attention. And that takes time.
Yeah, it does. And so we always have a thing that like every day has to be inbox zero.
Yeah.
And your connections and everything have to be down to zero every single day. So one thing, and you touched on it, was about the removing connection requests and the number of connection requests. So again, one of the advantages, as you know, of Sales Navigator Advanced is that you can actually send 200 connection requests per week. What's your thoughts on how much people should be outbound sending connection requests? Because clearly visibility comes from being connected. So what do you think?
So you and I are in a strange situation there. We both reached the 30,000 limit. So I've been removing people basically and then adding people. So I never send out 200. I let people come to me, which is obviously the essence of social selling too. So if a post goes viral, I know I'll have 20, 30 people coming to me, of which I'll probably ignore 75% because they're not my ideal customer, or they're not in Singapore, for example, which is my golden rule to basically accepting someone. Because I don't see the point of accepting someone who I can't help and who can't help me. And also is not going to be commenting on my content about Singapore, for example, or about being an entrepreneur. So it is all about basically sending out, maybe 50 to 60 invitations a week. And normally I've met that person or they've engaged with my content. So I know they're genuine. I know they might comment on my next post, which is obviously great for conversations, great for Brew 360 algorithm. And then also making sure I withdraw invitations after 4 or 5 days. Because I think if they're not on LinkedIn and they haven't bothered to accept the invitation, then why am I leaving this open? Because LinkedIn will count that against you. So you do need to get rid of people who basically have no intention whatsoever of accepting your invitation. How many invitations do you send out a week then, Adam?
Well, I'm the same because I've got the 30,000, but I'm probably more referencing for people on, because we're in very much the minority of 30,000. So more with black marketing's clients. So let's say they have a 2,000 or 3,000.
Yeah.
What's the process that your team would use as far as outbound connection requests?
So we mix it up between outbound to people who have engaged with content, outbound who have viewed the profile, outbound who viewed the smart link, and outbound to people who are their perfect ICP. And that's a mixture of connections, follow-ups, open profiles, and them coming to us. So the ideal situation, as we both know, Adam, is people to come to us. They read the content of our client. The client then goes, oh, that's interesting. I'd like to connect with you. And then we can sell to them through a first connection, not as a second connection. We'd have to use an in-mail to actually do that. So I'd always say, tops 200 connections a week at the very most. And LinkedIn are getting very precious about this as well. You can't do too many connections in one go. You can't do basically too many open profiles in one go. You can't do many messages in one go. They don't want you to be using bots. They don't want you using automation. They don't want you to use spamming. So I think you have to be looking at quality and not content. But that's where content comes in. If you can get someone to read your content and come to your profile, you don't have to spend the time reaching out to them. And it's much easier to sell to someone who's come through your door rather than you're knocking on their door.
Very true. And also, obviously, if you do get to where you're sending them a connection request, like you said, they viewed your profile, viewed your content, the percentage acceptance rate goes infinitely
95%.
higher. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. But then also, if they don't accept after 4 days, that's also a red flag. Okay, out. You're gone. I don't need you in my and don't need you in that. But let's talk about one thing about expectations, Adam. Yeah, what do you think people's expectations realistically should be on LinkedIn?
Well, I think that's something you need to kind of just look at as far as the overall strategy.
Yeah.
What's the time investment? Like you said, to really do this effectively, it's at least an hour a day. Now, if someone says, and often I get the case, they'll say, I've only got 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Well, then you've got to temper your expectations
Yes.
relative to the time that you're spending.
Absolutely.
So if you want the best possible outcome, obviously it's come and work with us and get us to do this for you. But if you're going to do it yourself, then you do need to have an hour a day invested into it. And on that, then you can have an expectation relative to that level of commitment. One of the biggest time parts of that is, like you said, content creation. Yeah. So what's your what are people's expectations around how much content they're going to use? So we talked about in earlier episodes, a lot of credibility comes from content, visibility comes from content, everything comes from content.
Yep.
So, if you're going to do nothing else, put a good block of that time into content creation. And then build the rest of it around that. I think it's also a matter of having traceability as far as, okay, well, I invested this hour, but what's the outcome? We always talk about what are the outcomes of everything. So what's the outcome of my content? What's the outcome of my, so if you're sending 200 connection requests a week as an example, well, what is the percentage acceptance rate?
Yeah.
If that number is really low, then that's something to work on.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a matter of expectation, but also breaking it down into the parts, because your overall expectation outcome might be improved by improving the acceptance rate, or it might be, like you said, there's actually a real big red flag to LinkedIn if you've got thousands of unaccepted connection requests. So you should be going in, and removing, the ones, on whatever cadence, you like you said, yours is 4 or 5 days. So make sure that part of that time commitment is in the right things, because there's a lot of people, and like you said, how many times people have got 1,000 connection requests out there sitting there they haven't done anything with. Spend a bit, but you don't want to be spending all your time just connecting with everybody because they sent you a connection request. You got to look at their profile.
Yeah, correct.
Have it, are they, is there a fit both ways? Can I add value to them? Will they add value to me? So I think the expectations has to be broken down. It's everyone thinks expectation is just outcome of revenue created or something like that. I think it's really more about an entire holistic view of everything you're doing.
Absolutely. And
segmenting it into parts. Because if you're not tracking those parts, you can't improve them.
Absolutely. That's so true. I mean, it is a 3-step process. If your personal brand is not complete, profile not complete, you're not doing content that's interesting to people, you won't get the outcome. Simple as that. And it is that 3-step process, and that takes time, and there's no getting away from that.
Yeah.
And you can ask us all these questions on our events coming up on whoviewedmyprofilepodcast.com. So register now and put your question down there, and we will answer anything you want to when it concerns LinkedIn. But thanks for listening, and thanks for watching.